Buenos días. Por parte de la Universidad Autónoma de Chihuahua y la Facultad de Filosofía y Letras, les damos la más cordial bienvenida a todas y todos ustedes a la 43ª Semana del Humanismo, Ética y Educación como herramientas contra la brecha social. Agradecemos la presencia de la comunidad de la Facultad de Filosofía y Letras de la UASH, además del público que nos sigue por nuestras redes sociales oficiales. Antes de iniciar con la presentación de nuestros conferencistas, queremos solicitarle a quienes tengan preguntas las compartan en el chat para ser leídas al finalizar la conferencia. Muchas gracias. Es así que este día nos da gusto recibir a la maestra Lizette Drusila Delgado, a la licenciada Clío Perséfone Medina Nevárez y a la maestra Carla Paola Cancino Ríos. Y a la maestra Lizette, a la maestra Lizette, doble presentación a la maestra Lizette, profesora titular de tiempo completo en la Universidad Autónoma de Chihuahua. Tiene un doctorado en lingüística aplicada de la Universidad de Southampton del Reino Unido. Imparte cursos de licenciatura y posgrado en TESOL e historia estadounidense y británica. Sus intereses de investigación incluyen tutoría, identidad, autonomía y aprendizaje a través de redes sociales y aplicaciones. La maestra Carla Paola es licenciada en lengua inglesa por la Universidad Autónoma de Chihuahua. Comenzó a impartir clases de inglés en el 2003 en el Diplomado de Inglés de Filosofía y Letras en la Universidad Autónoma de Chihuahua. Estudió la maestría en educación superior en la misma institución, obteniendo el grado de maestra con tesis. Actitudes en estudiantes de inglés como idioma extranjero. Maestra en la licenciatura de lengua inglesa de la Universidad Autónoma de Chihuahua desde el 2010. Sus intereses de investigación están relacionados con la enseñanza, aprendizaje del inglés como idioma extranjero. La licenciada Medina Nevárez es maestra de interpretación y literatura desde hace 10 años. Ellas nos presentan la mesa panel Tips and Tricks to Keep Your Class Focused on Virtual Settings. Adelante, por favor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us in this early conference. Today we are going to talk to you about some tips and tricks to keep your classroom focused and engaged on virtual settings. As you know, during the pandemic, many things changed. And one of the things that affected us the most as teachers is precisely how to keep the students active in our classes, because we don't have them face to face. We cannot check if they are there. We cannot see them and tell them to pay attention to us and see if they are actually in class. And that is because of many different reasons. One of the main ones is precisely that students in virtual learning, sometimes they are not there. They are here, but they are not really here. So we just see a set of names there on the screen, but we don't actually know if the student is really behind the screen or not. So we are going to give you some tips and tricks that we personally use to keep our classes focused during these pandemic courses or these virtual settings, online settings. So before we start, I know that there are some people there in Facebook Live. So I would like to ask you to join this link, please, to go to menti.com and to join this, this question and to answer it, please, if you can go there. Let me share the Menti with you so that you can answer the question, please, with us. Can you see it now? The ones that are watching? Yes? So we need you to please go to this website that is menti.com and put this code 13786022, please, and answer that question if you can see it. Okay, so I can see in the chat that some people are saying that they can see it. So can now you go there, please, and quickly just answer that question. How do you know that a student is focused during class? Can you tell us that? I'm writing in the chat. Okay, we have their participation again. The camera on, they ask questions, they answer questions. Okay, interaction, very good. Okay, so participation is winning. Participation, interaction, we have more interaction, cameras. Okay, they are asking questions, very good. By interactions, camera participation, they helping other people. Okay, their assignments are good, very good. So, okay, we can see here that most of you think that it is participation like the key one, because as you can see, it's getting like the bigger question here is getting the bigger part. Okay, good. So now the opposite question. When do you think that students are not engaged in the classroom? How do you, can you say that they are not engaged in the classroom? Can you tell us when they are not engaged in the classroom? Any ideas? Okay, I'm going to go back. And well, so as you can see, participation is one of the key things when we know, okay, we have camera off, the people are not responding to the classes, the grades are bad. Let me share it again, sorry. We have that they are not even connecting to class, very good. That's something that students can do now, right? With technology, they just don't get online and that's it, and we don't know if they are there or not. They are not answering, okay, excuses. We have the opposite, no participation, but apparently camera off is the one that is winning this time. Nobody has questions. The grades are bad. Okay, very good. So, as you can see, there are many different characteristics that let us know that the students are not engaged in the class, that students are not participating in class, and that they are not in class, basically, yes? So now the question, are you engaged in the class? This is not for you to like answer it to us, but it's for you to think about it. And this is what we want you to see, if you are actually engaged during the lesson or if you are not engaged during the lesson, and to see how can you see if the students are not engaged. So first, what is learner engagement? Well, according to Stroud in a study that they did in 2015, they claim that engaged learners, precisely as you said, they participate, they are focused in classes, they enjoy the challenges that the teacher gives them, and especially they also engage in autonomous learning. That is, they go beyond what they see in the class. As you know, in language classes, like in learning English, that is the case of what most of us teach, it is very important that students are doing more than just staying in the class, because most of the times with 1 hour of class is definitely not enough, right? So you need to go a little bit beyond. And when do you go beyond? When you like it, when you are interested in the language, and when you are interested in the class, when you feel motivated to attend the class and to say, oh, I want to do best, I definitely need to do more. On the opposite, like many of you mentioned, these engaged learners, they are usually distracted, they don't work, they tend to distract others, like we have seen in the micro teachings. They do the minimum required. It's like, okay, I need to hand in this assignment and it is like 500 words. I'm going to do 500 words and not one word more. Or you are trying there to trick the teachers by putting like the font and in white color, thinking that we don't notice. When we do, guys, we do notice. So well, you come up with your tricks, and in the virtual environment, in online environment, it is way easier to be disengaged because you are at home. So some of you are sleeping. I'm sure that many of you are just wearing your pajamas right now, right? Probably you just woke up. Probably you are on your bed, like very happy with your blanket. Probably we would be doing the same if we weren't presenting right now. But that is an easier way to disengage. Also, you have your family dynamics. You have your dogs, your cats. We have seen Michis there coming around on your screen. And sometimes you just decide to do something else. Many times when you're paying attention, you kind of put away all those barriers that are happening around you to stay focused in the class. But when you don't like the class, you just do something else. You are playing games while you are in class. You are watching, I don't know, the Squid Game while you are playing. When you are taking class, you are playing the Squid Game while you are in class. I don't know, but you might be doing many other things. So my friend Maura is going to tell you the different stages of engagement. Yes, so that we see the different stages, because it's not just either you are engaged or disengaged. So, Yami?
Hi there. Hello, morning everyone. It's nice to be around with you again in a virtual setting this time. So we're going to talk about the 5 levels of student engagement in here, because just as Lizette mentioned, it's not like they are either super engaged or they are completely disconnected to what we're doing, right? So the first level is the one that they are completely engaged. They are participating, they are part of the discussion, they are talking, their cameras are on and they're there. There's persistence, right? There is playfulness with the content. That means they get the content that make it theirs, right? There's an unprompted transfer of understanding. So you don't have to be like, hey, did you understand? Did you get it? A, are you? Yes. They are here. They are paying attention to what you're doing and to what you're saying, and they are generating their own conclusions as well, right? There is strategic compliance. That is that there's an effort. You can tell there is creativity, but not much, right? There is like, well, I'm doing, but not to my fullest potential. Yes. So they focus on directions and task completion, right? So they just want to make things right. They want to get it done. Then we have the ritual compliance, which is less, right? In the blue one, the strategic compliance, they want to do well and do more. And in the ritual compliance, it's just like the bare minimum that they can do just to get the grade, right? That's why I hate when students ask me, not only virtual settings in general, like how many words do we need? Because if you say 80, they're gonna make like 81, they're gonna write 81 words just to make sure that they get the requirement done, and that's it. Just the question itself, it's showing lack of engagement. If they're asking you how many pages do I need, like just to work on them, less amount of pages that I am able to, right? And then we have minimal effort made only to mitigate consequences. They're thinking of consequences. They're not thinking of learning, but consequences, punishers, right? And that's the wrong approach. If you're doing this because you have to like complete it because of the assignment, because of the grade, then that means that knowledge is not necessarily being transferred in here, right? And then we have the rigitism, which is when they are like just not into it. They are not paying attention. They are usually, as Lizette mentioned, either in their pajamas or in their beds, and they're like, you can tell that they just woke up, that they are just here because they have to be here. So they don't want to be here. There's no interest in the context, in the content, I'm sorry. There's a lack of collaboration. They are not being part of this. They are like agreeing with everyone. Everyone says they are just like, yeah, whatever. And rebellion, yes. Opposite to engagement is not necessarily just indifference. There are ones that their indifference is the way they are rebelling against the way the class is being held, right? So there's disruption, there's defiance, there is, what if I don't do it? What if I do it last minute? What if I don't answer? What if I just like be here and like go through the class just like doing this and saying like, good morning, teacher, here, and goodbye, teacher. And those are all of your participations, right? So it's very interesting that it was classified, as I mentioned, as rebellion and not as indifference, because again, indifference is sort of rebellion towards what you're doing and what you're presenting, right? So I think the next slide is Paula's, right?
No.
No?
So, well,
okay.
Why are students then not engaged? There are many reasons why they are in this rebellion stage, or why they just don't care. And many aspects are, for example, distraction. As we mentioned, when we are in a virtual environment, you have many distractors, your parents, your family, your children, your pets, el señor de la nieve, el señor de la basura, el que vende los tacos. So you have many distractions, el de los camotes, ¿no? Que nunca pasa, pero va a pasar ese día que están en clase. So you have many distractions that can obviously get your attention more than what you are having in class. Another is disruptive behavior. This tends to happen more in face-to-face courses, but it can also happen in online courses when you have one student that is like trying to be the funny one, or that is like playing there with the annotation tool of the Zoom or whatever, and they're just disrupting students. Or sometimes it is not something like that, but it's more that they don't feel confident. For example, in the case of language classes, many times students don't feel confident to speak in front of everybody else. They are afraid of giving their opinions. They are afraid of telling you the wrong answer, so they will not be engaged. Another is simply lack of interest. I don't care. I'm here because I have to, because I need to pass this class. I'm here because I have no idea why I'm here, but here I am. So let's get into class. And another, and that is the most common, boredom. The classes are boring. We don't feel interested in the class because the class is simply boring. So here is where we as teachers need to do something, because we cannot control el señor Delgado, no, we cannot control that. We cannot control the confidence of the students that much, but we can indeed motivate them. But we can control our classes. We can plan the classes in such a way that it is not boring and that is interesting for the students, so that they become more engaged in the lesson. So here we have some findings about online learning that I'm going to share with you. Pao?
Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Well, I continue, and I would like to mention other distractions. Like, I think that you didn't mention pan ranchero.
Yeah, I forgot. Sorry.
And the guy that has this nice music selling fierro viejo or something like that. Okay.
El panadero y el pan also. I forgot. I think we are all learning all the songs that we didn't know about the Mexican sellers.
Right. And well, some findings that I want to mention here might be linked to what we are saying, because this is based on perspectives that the students have mentioned. And these findings were found in a study that is called Online Learning Benefits and Challenges During the COVID-19 Pandemics. And it was, they did the study last year, in the year 2020. And it was in order to have some background about the students who participated, because I only show you here general results. They were university students involved in this study, majoring in English language and literature. Well, but generally in their perceptions and related to what is the main point here, like getting some tips and tricks for keeping your class focused, it's that the impact that online classes have had in students during this pandemic, and therefore all these challenges. So generally it was found that online teaching, let me move a little bit that online teaching was a good solution. In general, students, in their perceptions and what they mentioned, is that it was a good solution to have online classes during this COVID-19 situation. Generally, they perceive it as good, as something that can solve probably this idea of education. But on the other hand, what they claim that is necessary sometimes, and maybe even in class settings, in traditional settings, but we know that being online, as it says here in the quote, it brings some psychological and pedagogical challenges in this shift from traditional to online learning. So what they say is that, yes, it is a good solution, but regular feedback is necessary. And this is something that we can do during our classes. That's why most of the times we like to be in class with you using Google Meet, using Zoom, in order to obtain this feedback, probably more immediate feedback. Of course, we have to work on feedback to the work that you have to do, And this is what students perceived in general. This is what they actually mentioned in the study, that regular feedback was necessary, and sometimes they felt that they were given a workload, they were given a certain work, but they were not receiving this feedback that usually motivates students. And therefore, as a result, it's kind of part of the tip and trick to keep them motivating during our lessons. And the second point that I have is that even when positive attitudes are generally present, and I know that most of us want to go to school, like wish positive attitudes. Well, positive attitudes regarding like the use of internet, self-study, that you find additional materials. Well, even when these positive attitudes are generally present, teachers should be careful with the amount of homework. So some of the students also, their perceptions are that sometimes the workload is a lot. Sometimes there is a lot of homework to be done, but this can be in the tips and tricks that we will be mentioning. This can be probably, next one, please. This can be probably overcome with some of the strategies. These were just some of the things that were found in the study. So you can see some of the questions that students were asked, like they were attending their classes. You can see some percentages here, some interesting percentages. And then they were asked, do you think that you have been a successful online learner? So also their perception on the type of learner that they are influences in the way that they are motivated for their classes. This is a question where they express this idea, like, were you given too much homework during online classes? And this is where they probably had the opportunity to say, yes, I had a lot of homework. And since there are a lot of things going on in our lives right now, being at home in this side of the screen, probably alone, like not being with our classmates, this is an opportunity to, like to say, yeah, we have a lot of homework and I feel alone. So maybe this is where they express like this negative side of online teaching. But okay, also here in number 7, were there confusing aspects to the setup of the course? So maybe this is another part that we can use for our classes. And as a part of the tips and tricks that we will be talking about, like sometimes they are confused. Sometimes students may feel confused. And one more thing that they were, and here they talk about feedback, like in part of the open questions, they say teachers always gave me feedback on assignments. Sometimes it is back, but it's like as something positive that students claim it's positive, like evaluating students and giving some feedback. They know that is motivating for them. And lastly, on this study, it's discussion. Discussion was also part of the things that could be improved in online teaching, because in traditional settings is what can be done more easily. So it will be also part of tips and tricks, the discussion.
Okay, so as you can see, as Paola said, feedback is super important. And as she mentioned, that is why we are in Lengua Inglesa, we give you the classes. We don't use, most of the classes are actually with you on Zoom or on Meet, on whatever, on WebEx when we used to have WebEx. But that is precisely because we want to engage you. And that is something that we have noticed in our students that they like, because we have had comments that they say like, I do feel like I am in the university because I see my classmates or my friends, I see my friends from, I don't know, this major, and they don't have classes. So they are surprised that we're having classes, blah, blah, blah. And like, this is part also of building the identity that you are students, that you are part of a community, and you start like socializing even through a screen with your classmates and with your teachers. You get to know them better. So, well, now that we know what are the causes of why people don't engage, why students don't engage, then what can we do as teachers to be like this, like Mrs. Hermione, instead of like Donald Duck? Yeah, like you just go and your only participation in class is to say here, and well, I forgot here the second most important participation in a class. Thank you, Miss, and goodbye, right? So what can we do so that this doesn't happen? So this is now when we are going to give you some of our personal tips. So monitor your students. When you are teaching an online class, you can see your participants, the students there in the corner or wherever you put the cuadritos, the squares with the names there. So monitor them. keep asking them questions. Sometimes teachers like to tell them to turn on their camera so that we can see their faces and see their actual reactions to class to see that if they are there. But there are times when they don't turn on their cameras for other reasons, not for personal reasons that we don't need to know, but just keep asking them questions, keep monitoring them so that you know that they are there. For example, I could be like, Joss, what am I saying? Or Joss, what do you think about this? Just engage them. Sometimes we ask the students, does anybody have a question? And this is something that we were discussing in the TESOL planning class, and one of my students, Liz, said, she said like, she remembered knowing that you shouldn't ask, like, does anybody have a question? Because the most common answer is going to be no, even if they have questions, but rather you ask them a question to corroborate if they have, or if they do have, or they do not have questions. Also, address them. Don't just wait for them to participate, because sometimes they won't. Again, sometimes they are shy or they're just afraid. Oh yeah, sometimes they don't want to. But you as the teacher, you are in control of the class, and you need to make sure that your students are there. So ask them questions, ask them directly, so that they know that you are going to be there asking them, yes? And that does work, because when you don't ask them questions directly, they can even do whatever else, because they know that they won't have to participate, yeah? So if they know that you are constantly addressing students, they don't know when it's going to be the time when you are going to tell them, okay, Paola, now you tell me. Y luego la Paola, ay, ¿qué dijo? Probably Paola was not here. Probably Paola was washing the dishes or watching TV. I don't know. But then if she knows that you as a teacher are constantly addressing students, she's going to be more attentive just automatically, because she won't want to be like surprised like that. Yeah. Also, guys, use online tools. There are so many different apps that you can use nowadays, especially with the pandemic. Many developers, well, they created new applications that we can use. Use videos. You have, for example, so Genially, instead of just using PowerPoint that can be more interactive, or Nearpod that is even more interactive in presentations. But you can also create games so that you can corroborate, so you can check the students' learning. For example, when we teach a language like English, in our case, you can use also WordWall. WordWall is super easy to use, and you have so many templates there. And the only thing that you have to do is write the questions, and it makes them into very fun and very cute games. And please don't use Kahoot anymore. This is a super personal recommendation, because Kahoot has been overused. Yeah, at first it was cool, like, Kahoot, qué buena onda, ooh, yeah. But no, now everybody, absolutely everybody uses Kahoot. So it doesn't have the same impact as it had last year, yeah? So you have many other tools that are going to be probably more interesting for the students, that are going to be more appealing, because it's something new, something surprising. So I have nothing against Kahoot. My only problem with Kahoot is that it has been overused. Now everybody, absolutely everybody uses it, and it's not that fun anymore, yeah? So it doesn't show your creativity. At first, when a teacher used Kahoot, it was like, ay, la maestra le sabe un chorro la tecnología, qué suave, si quiero entrar, está bien padre. And you even went like, oh, I play a game that is called Kahoot, o algo así, yeah, it's super cool. But now the teacher tells you, okay, we're going to play this Kahoot. And you're like, ay, qué padre, qué emoción, yeah? So try to use other strategies, surprise your students. Don't be boring. Yeah, don't be boring in your classes. And how do you know that? Well, ask yourselves, whenever you plan your lesson, ask yourself, would I enjoy being in my class? Do I like my class? And if your answer is no, that you wouldn't like to be your own student, then probably your students don't like to be your students either. So change something, be more creative, and try not to be boring. I know it's easier said than done, but you can do it, guys, yes? Just don't be boring. Think about the thing. Think of yourselves as students. What do you like? What would you like in a class? And do it. Be the teacher that you would have liked to have. Yes? So we have here more tips.
Hi. So these are my tips. I hope that you find them useful. The first one is be comfortable in your own class, from setting to format. What does that mean? we know that you're at home. We know that this feels sometimes invasive, that you have to like present like you're in your house, and it feels kind of awkward sometimes being at home doing this, people passing by, people around. So make sure that you feel comfortable in terms of like, find a place where you feel in control of the environment, that you're certain that there are not going to be people yelling, children running, etc. And it's not because the students are going to feel like distracted or anything. It's you. It's like one more stressor that is on you. So try to get rid of as many stressors as you can and have the setting prepared as you like it. If you're okay with children running, etc., well, they're going to be, make sure that you understand the implications of that. But the point is, be comfortable teaching the class, right? And the same happens with format. Sometimes it's like, well, you know, many teachers are using these apps and these other apps. I should use them as well. Like this other person teaches class with like 5 different apps and games, and I don't. I should. Be comfortable with your own format. It's your class, own it, and you get to decide what to do. Not all of the classes require every single game to be played, or not every class requires actually games, right? Or apps or anything. You get to decide. So you don't have to have the same format for all of your classes or the lessons. It depends. And be flexible enough to be comfortable in there. If you don't feel confident using a certain tool, make sure that you don't implement it until you're confident using it. So this is like fear. Have you ever heard how dogs and printers can smell fear? The same happens with students. Students can smell fear, and when you're not comfortable, and if you're not comfortable, you're setting the pace. You're the one that sets the mood for the class. So if you're uncomfortable, if you're afraid, if you're apologizing, like, I don't know what happened, and you're not comfortable, students are gonna sense that, and it's gonna become kind of tense, right? So
yeah, like printers, right? They smell the fear, and then they become less engaged.
that's what I said. Yes, you see, she was not engaged. She was checking her cell phone when I said that.
I was actually reading one of the chat messages because a person is saying there, you keep their attention through fear, but like the teacher imposing fear on the students. I don't know if they know
Visual
us
fear.
or not. Yeah, so that's what I was reading.
Fear, well, yeah, fear is a very effective tool. We should talk about that also, right? But fear is different. Like this is virtual fear, yes? And virtual fear also works. You can threaten them with virtual chat classes and they hurt as well, just like the real ones. The virtual ones are effective too. So yeah, fear, yeah, we need a whole new conference to talk about fear as a teaching tool. Right?
Yeah.
So we have then transfer versus adapt. As teachers, we were challenged when all of this pandemic stuff started. We had this challenge. We had to adapt our classes into this setting, like virtual setting, and we had no idea how to do it, but we did. But it was complicated because everything was virtual now. Back then, we used a couple of elements here, a presentation, probably an app or something, but now it was everything. The thing with transferring, and the difference between transferring and adapting, is that if you're a teacher that used to have his or her content and like written on the board, and then your adaptation is to write the same content on a PowerPoint, you're not adapting, you're just transferring content and you're doing the same, but with different tools. And the idea is that you have to change the way you teach. You cannot just transfer like from a piece of cardboard to a PDF and that's it. I'm in virtual mode now. No, there has to be adaptation. And if you're not doing that, if you're just having the same materials and the same format of your class into this, then you're just transferring this. You're not adapting. And adaptation is a key point from number 3 as well. Yeah, you have to be ready to change the pace when necessary. The activities, you prepare them, you like, I don't know how much time we invest doing this, right? But probably it's not working. So make sure that you read the classroom constantly, that you read the attitudes, the participation, if they are engaged, if they are here, and if they are not, have the flexibility of changing that. See that and move around. I ask students, like, what do you think about that? And I wait for an answer. But if I see that there's no answer, I start appointing people and ask them, just as Lizette mentioned before, hey, what about you? What do you think? What's your idea about this? Change the pace constantly. Because if you keep an activity for 30 minutes, as fun as the activity might be, it's gonna be dull after some time. So change the pace and do it accordingly whenever it's necessary, even when it was not in your plan, right? Because if not, it's gonna be like, hey, yes, good. And something might go wrong, be okay with that. As I mentioned before, with being comfortable, you may prepare everything that is working, and that day, Telmex decides that no, there's not going to be a connection today, or like, no, it's not going to work. So be okay with that, and don't freak out at the things that you cannot control. The thing about this is that we simultaneously have more control over things, and at the same time, we have zero control over others. Be okay and be comfortable with the things that you don't have control over, right? If like one of the kids starts running, if your cat is passing by in front of the camera and everything, you cannot really control that, right? Sometimes, as I mentioned before, try to have the setting as control as possible. But if there's no internet connection, if the game is not working, if the app is not working, if there was a mistake in there, be okay with that and be comfortable. Because again, if you go like, if you retreat, you freak out and you start like, I don't know what to do, students are gonna get that vibe as well, and just like disengage from what you're doing. Be able to change the pace instead and say like, well, this is not working, next thing, you know, or that was wrong, next thing. Like, be comfortable with everything that you cannot control and just go on. And the next one has to do with choosing your battles. What I mean by that is that not everything is supposed to be like, do this homework and do it at home. For example, like there are many teachers out there that say like, okay, all of the homework is going to be like this, and all of the classes are going to be like this. If we can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. Right, we have asynchronous and synchronous learning. That means synchronous, of course, like what we're doing here, like talking together, discussing. So there are activities that need to be like this, and there are the others that can be done at home. So make sure that you like fight the temptation of doing everything homework based, or because not everything can be like that. I teach an interpretation class, and I cannot just ask my students like, read this text, discuss it, or discuss this idea. Is like, who are they going to discuss it with? We need to do it like together in a class, you know, and that has to do also with imitating the class vibe. Like, try to have a class, an organic class as much as possible, that it feels like a classroom. And that way that you achieve it with the synchronous learning. Again, being together, talking about things that are complex, words that are complex. Not everything is supposed to be homework. At the same time, that not everything cannot be discussed in class. So choose which activities. Is a very useful chart in here that can tell you which activities can be asynchronous and which ones can be asynchronous. So you get to decide which one is which, right? Not all of them are suitable for being taken as homework. So we have to resist and fight against like, yeah, do it at home. So we're not gonna have 3 out of 5 classes. And so you can do this at home, right? Because you're supposed to walk along with them. This is not happening to you. It's happening to everyone, right? So make sure we understand that we are walking this together. So we have to accompany students in their path. Okay, so Pao, you're on.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks so far for those tips and tricks. And I'm going to add some of them to the list. And some of mine to the list. So tips or tricks you can add to this list that we have had by your beautiful teachers. Well, these are some, maybe they are a little bit more specific about like during the class, or maybe consider strategies, but after all, they are tips or tricks we can use. I hope also that they are useful, that you consider them useful. So number one says, get started on time. Why do I mention this? Because sometimes maybe online or even, well, some of them may also apply for traditional teaching, but get started on time. I don't know why or what is the effect that online teaching has had, that usually at 8 o'clock, students are there, or 9 o'clock, students are there, like waiting for the class, and you can see all these circles, Google Meet circles with their pictures or with their cameras on, ready to get started. And the same happens for English classes. In general, I also give English classes, not only for language English students, we also give English classes, and they are ready, like virtually, they have the opportunity to be ready there o'clock. So get started on time. What do I mean with this? That, well, we will be there with them, but we don't have to wait like some minutes in order to wait for the rest of the class to be there. On the other hand, we can start not directly, right, with content, but we can get started with something related to the class, with an overview. What are we going to see today? Maybe some questions of previous knowledge acquired or things that we were practicing. And then, of course, that for first minutes, but this is also to respect the ones that are there o'clock, or the ones that are there waiting for their class. And of course, after some minutes, you can start directly with your class and maybe mark there those being late. Maybe this also can help you to motivate students to be there as well on time. Number two says, prepare questions to discuss. What do I mean with this? That sometimes we can prepare a set of questions based on content, based on things that students should be learning, and address those questions, as your teachers already mentioned, to particular students. Even sometimes we can create certain questions or certain exercises, like using the names of the ones involved in class, so that they can see their names, or they can hear their names in this type of questions or exercises that we provide them. But prepare these questions in order to discuss in class. So not only questions that they have to answer in the chat, that is a possibility, using the chat, maybe when something is not working very well with their mic, you may allow this, but prepare questions to discuss. This is sometimes what was missing, what students perceived as missing in their classes, or that they miss from traditional classes. Prepare some questions that do not precisely require a presentation, but some discussion that students feel involved. Number three, this is another tip or trick that we can use, and it's dictation. But not only dictate something, you can dictate either words for English language teaching. You can make a list of words related to what you have seen, or sentences related to what they have learned, but also questions for an exercise on a certain topic that you have covered. And do not only dictate, but also ask them. So maybe you can tell them, okay, now show me your notebook, show me your notes. And maybe, well, it's not because of my background, maybe, but you ask them to show notes, and then you are, maybe sometimes we cannot see very well, but we try to check and we try to see what they wrote, and, well, ask them for evidence. So use dictation, but ask for evidence so that you know they are working. Number four, ask participants to write down notes. Well, we are working on the screen a lot. We are taking our classes, students are doing a lot of homework, they are reading, so why not give some chance for students to use a notebook? Well, I particularly use these sometimes for certain activities. I think it works. I think students may rest somehow from the screen. Of course, we like technology. Some students they say, no, I prefer to write everything in Word right now or in Drive. But maybe sometimes asking participants to write down notes will be something that makes them feel in the classroom, something that makes them feel that they work on, yeah, like when we are writing, we can probably retain some ideas, retain some words, memorize some things, or learn, not only memorize. So writing down some notes during class, giving students time to write these notes, maybe also a good activity as to add to this variety. And number five, time your activities, but be flexible. This is, well, it's probably also related to what your teachers have mentioned, but time your activities so that you have, so that you plan what you're going to see, but also be flexible in the sense that sometimes students need time to answer, students need time to get ready to participate. So in that sense, we can try to be a little bit flexible when timing our activities online. There might be some things going on, so we can actually give this time for them to feel better to participate. Oh yeah, and this time for activities and be flexible also refers to being sure that students got the instructions clear and that they have time to look for the answers, to write out the answers. So those are some tips and tricks. I don't know if we, yeah. Should I end up with the following slides?
Do you want to
I think so.
say the poll? Because I already copied the link in the chat, so I can just send it to.
All right.
So tell them about it.
So this poll, it's about, from these strategies that I have mentioned, I would like you to participate and see who is checking what we're talking about in this slide. And you can choose from the ones that are, you can go to the link, choose the ones that you think that you will use from these options. Of course, probably there are more, but from these options, which strategies would you like to use in your class?
Okay, you have the link in the live chat. I already copied there, so you just need to answer it. We can continue while they answer it, so that if they have questions, we can answer.
We have a question here that says, have you ever felt like you lost your patience while online teaching because students don't participate or something else? Well, teaching in general is a patience sport, right? So I think we have lost our patience. The thing is not to show that you lose your patience, right? It's like being understanding and understanding why is that they are not understanding, because sometimes it is because their instructions are not clear, or your instructions were not clear. So you have to say like, oh, maybe I didn't do it right. Let me rephrase that, right? And when students don't participate or something, as I told you before, you have to change the strategy. It's not a matter of like, no one is participating, right? It's like, okay, no one's participating. So you tell me about this, you tell me about that. Change a little bit your strategy and adapt to what you see.
Yeah, I personally haven't, but because I'm very patient, but it also has to do with everybody's personality. So it depends on you. For example, I tell my students, my language students, if you don't participate, I'll give you another chance when I ask you. And if you don't, I'll just kick you out of the session. So, yo no me complico. Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah. So my students know that they have to participate. So this is what we've been telling you, like, come up with strategies, like stand your ground as teachers, and they will know. Guys, I'm looking at the chat too, but you know how to deal with your teachers. Just as we learn to know you as students, you get to know us as teachers, and you know perfectly well with whom you can like not do anything and still pass. And you know perfectly well in which classes you have to participate with which teachers, sometimes because you have to, and many times just because you want to. Yeah. So it depends on everybody's strategies. So just come up with your own. Pao, you want to say something before we continue?
Well, I consider myself very patient, very quickly, I will say. But yes, I have felt something like that, in the sense that sometimes I feel like maybe I start asking questions to myself, like maybe the instructions were not clear, maybe they don't have, maybe they don't know what is this about, or maybe they didn't read about this. So I start thinking about, and then what can I do? So in that sense, because so in that moment when they do not do the exercise, when they answer a lot of things wrong in a particular activity, I start asking myself these questions, and I relate this to this part of like, feel like you lost your patience in that sense. And that's what I do. I start like asking myself about that and looking for ways to, let's check feedback on this exercise. Why did you got number 5 wrong and number 6, and remember these?
Okay, so do you want to continue, Paul, before we?
Okay, and these last slides, I just wanted to finish with some final words here, because it says, after all these difficulties, remember that a long time ago they told us, on April 21st, you will come back to class, go to spring break, and it has been 18 months from that moment. So there has been a lot of difficulties, but also there have been some learning gains, and it can be part of these tips and trips that we can probably take with us to the future. So that will be kind of these points. Teachers have been using a lot more online education, but it has also been a challenge, because we have, in order to master or being able to use them, we have to learn how to use them, right? So these innovative strategies are benefits to remain in our classes probably in the future. That's part of what I wanted to say with this slide.
Yes, very good. Yeah, everything is here to stay. So we need to take advantage of everything and keep using it in our classes. So Pao, do you want to finish this part?
Yes, there is, well, and these strategies, with these strategies that we have mentioned, tips and tricks, we can mention that there is real-time feedback with many or most of the things we have mentioned, that teachers can use online tools to connect with students more, like probably this can be found, we can say as benefits and in general, and students have more access to learning opportunities with all these applications and technology. Do you want me to share the results only for
Sure.
the poll? Because students were, this is important.
No, I mean, you can share it and then we can go back to this one.
Okay, so it says this will stop other screens sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you for participating. As you can see, most of the ones that participated say that questions to discuss are the ones that they would like to use. And this is also important to know for us. Get started on time, 23%. Dictation, nobody. Why?
You like dictation?
well, now I know. Writing down notes and timing the activities, but this discuss is on top. Thank you. Thank you for participating.
Very good. So, well, I can see here that we have some questions too. Somebody is saying, Ivan says, what if the mood in the class is uncomfortable for the students, but the teacher doesn't notice it? Well, if you want, we can all answer it. I just want to say about this that you are also part of the lesson, guys. As students, it is also your responsibility how we handle the classes. It is not only the teacher, especially you, that you are adults. You can express your opinions. Feel free to tell us ways that we can improve, ways that you would enjoy the class, because sometimes that's true. Sometimes that happens. We think that everything is working very well and it is not. And if you don't tell us, we will probably don't notice because we don't know the dynamics that are going around each of all your classes. So it is also important that you as students get involved in the lessons and you tell the teachers what you like, what you don't like, and especially if you don't feel comfortable, because classes shouldn't be a punishment. No classes, but especially not university because you chose to be here. But language classes usually are also voluntary because you go there, yeah? And when they are not, still, no class should be considered as a punishment. So you can talk to the teachers and tell them something is wrong. Most of the times, I would say like 99% of the times, I cannot say 100 because I don't know all the teachers in the world, but most teachers are very welcoming of feedback precisely because we are in the teaching profession and we know that improvement and learning is part of, well, that is part of the profession. So that's my advice. I don't know if you have any questions, any comments, Pao and Io, about this one?
Well, I would only say that most of the times we might notice something. But as your teacher, Lizette Drusila, mentions, there's nothing better than to communicate this, or let your teachers know this. So let us know. Let us know, because probably we notice something and we say something is not working, they are not participating. I notice something when they talk to me, like, and when they participate, that they don't feel probably completely motivated. But feel free and reach your teachers and let them know.
Yeah, we cannot work on an issue that we don't know that it exists, right? We need to be aware of it, and then we can adapt accordingly. As you can see, adaptation is one of the key words in here. Nothing is set on stone for the teachers or the students. We have a choice. We have to spend 16 weeks, a semester here. The way we spend it is completely up to us, both teachers and students.
Very good. So, well, I think that is all because it's already time. But if you have more questions, feel free to write to us. You know that the three of us are very approachable. So you can just write to us and we will gladly answer your questions. So thank you very much for attending the presentation. Thank you for being engaged and for participating in our polls here. So thank you very much. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have an awesome day today. Bye-bye.
Joss?
Joss is not engaged.
Sí, ya vi. Yes, do we
Y aquí
finish?
estoy.
Do we finish ourselves?
Bye.
Sí, es que
Questions for
finalizaron,
Joes.
finalizaron y yo, bueno, está bien. Oigan, pues muchísimas gracias. Me gustaría leerles sus constancias. Finalizaron y yo, bueno, está bien. Muy bien. La Universidad Autónoma de Chihuahua y la Facultad de Filosofía y Letras otorga la presente constancia a la doctora Lizette Drusila Flores Delgado por su valiosa participación en la conferencia de la 43ª Semana del Humanismo, Ética y Educación como herramientas contra la brecha social, con su conferencia Tips and Tricks to Keep Your Class Focused on Virtual Settings, llevada a cabo de manera virtual el jueves 7 de octubre del 2021 de 9 a 10 de la mañana. Y pues así finalizamos. Muchísimas gracias. Así finalizamos este espacio en la 43ª Semana del Humanismo. Para nuestros estudiantes y docentes, les recordamos seguir pendientes de la programación del día de hoy en el marco de actividades de nuestra Semana del Humanismo, en donde se presentarán las actividades magistrales y participaciones próximas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank
Gracias.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
En donde se presentarán las actividades magistrales